Hello, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how do you pick your training contract. I thought that this topic is really important because when I was choosing which firm I should do my training contract with, I had a few dilemmas, and I think that it can be a very difficult decision to make. But hopefully with what I'm going to talk about in this video, it's going to help you guys a little bit more to think about what should you be looking out for. And even if you are not choosing your training contract yet, a lot of you are doing internships, so this could be something that is helpful for you if you are going to apply for TC next year or the year after. So hopefully you guys will find this pretty helpful. I made a little slide. You'll see that I'm gazing here and there because I'm trying to get some pointers. I realized that if not, these videos will go on forever. So I have to have some kind of structure to my videos, Okay, sorry for the sunglasses. I was out. Let's get started. The big question is, where should you do your training contract? There is a huge variety of firms out there. Today's video, I'm going to be focusing on Singapore training contracts. And this is because that's where my experience lies. I applied for TC maybe, I think it was 2 years back. My experience in getting TC offers mainly lie in Singapore. So, where should you train and what are the things you should be looking out for? So firstly, you need to know what you're in it for. The training contract now, starting from my batch, will be for 1 year instead of 6 months. And before doing your TC, you're gonna be doing your bar exam. So something that you might want to know is that the Part B bar exam is usually sponsored by your firm. Some firms have some conditions like you have to complete your training contract with them or you have to be retained by them. I think these are some questions that you should be asking the firm and to get some confirmation about this so you know what are the terms and conditions that come with the firm paying for your Part B exam, because it can be quite a lot. I think I paid about $6,000 for my Part B exam. That's because I'm PR. I think Singaporeans pay a little bit less, like 5,000-ish, but still it's quite a lot of money. So definitely check with your firm. So let's talk about the 1 year TC thing. This is really quite new to the legal industry in general. Even me as a trainee that's going to start my TC next year, there are still a lot of uncertainties that are out there, and we're just not getting the confirmations that we need at this moment. I cannot give you more information about these things because I feel like we're all just playing a waiting game and seeing what other firms will do. Well, with that, I'm talking about the pay, for the first year TC. You see, this is what I mean. I get a bit jumbled up. On the topic of pay, you should know that trainee pay is usually around, for the big four firms, around 2,000-ish. Maybe some international firms pay 3,000 and the smaller firms might pay less. And I've even heard of firms that don't pay. It's actually quite scary. So one thing people have been talking about is what are trainees going to be paid in this new 1 year TC regime. So previously it was only 6 months. After 6 months, you become newly qualified lawyer, you'll get a newly qualified lawyer salary, which goes up quite significantly. I'm talking about roughly maybe 6K onwards. I don't know, depends on the firm that you're in. I think Big Four should be 7K above there. International firms maybe even more. A lot of people have been asking, what are firms going to pay trainees for this whole 1 year? Will it be $2,000 for 12 months? Will it be an increase in salary after a certain number of months? Recently, something that is pretty interesting that has happened is this law firm, I think it's Seashore Law Firm, they've come out to say that after 6 months, they will be paying their trainees newly qualified lawyer salary. Although you are still a trainee, you get paid a real lawyer salary. And that's about the upwards of maybe 6,000. And I think that's pretty big news for the legal industry because I think some of us were expecting, a slight pay increase, but Seashore coming out to say that they're willing to pay newly qualified lawyer salary goes to show how, I guess, this firm values their employees. So now I think all of us are kind of just sitting here and waiting to see will the rest of the law firms do the same? Will the big four law firms follow? Will the international firms follow? Will this be a new normal for all of us? I mean, if we think about it from the law firm's perspective, nothing has really changed for them if they do proceed to pay all trainees newly qualified lawyer salary after 6 months, because under the previous regime, that's what they've been doing. After 6 months, they pay newly qualified lawyers that salary. So the reason why I'm saying this is because I think that's quite an important factor that future trainees out there and students should look out for, and you should bear in mind and also be asking your firms what the compensation is like once you are a trainee, right? So will you be getting a constant pay for 12 months? Will you be getting a staggered gradual increase in pay? The difference between trainee pay, which is about 2,000, and a newly qualified lawyer salary, which is like 6,000-7,000, is really a huge jump. You're looking at about $5,000 difference a month, and you multiply that by 6 months, that's 30K, right? 30K. I don't think that's a small amount of money that should be overlooked, but yeah, definitely keep that in mind. So very exciting times. We don't know how it's gonna be like, what the trend will be, what the new normal will be. But yeah, hopefully we're gonna get good news. Something else I wanted to add is some firms give allowances when you are doing your Part B exam. So I think on average it's about $500 for allowance during Part B. So meaning when you start your Part B course in July, you get about $500 a month as an allowance to kind of help you tide through the next 6 months. That kind of wraps up the first part about know what you're in it for. Because if you don't know how much you're getting paid for how long, it might affect how you plan your savings, how you plan your spendings, and things like that. And just a little bit of my own thoughts. The trainee period is something that a lot of law students don't know about, or they underestimate, let's say, how long it's gonna be or how little pay you're going to get during this time. So especially like that's how I felt, because when I started law school, I didn't know that we get paid much less than newly qualified lawyer during this period of time as a trainee. And I think especially as an overseas student coming back, you have to do your RLT, your Part A. The entire training period can be quite long. So for me, it will be about 2.5 years in total. So I thought it was really important for me to flag this out, because I think students should know what you're getting into, especially if you have to consider if you have the financial means to get through at least this 1.5 years to 2.5 years of training where you are not going to be getting lawyer salary. As well, at least for now, this is what's happening. I don't think a lot of students know, because when you read like those data and statistics from universities that say, oh, how much, and they rank all of the salaries of fresh grads, they put lawyer as like 5 to 6K. I think they completely just ignore the huge group of trainees, which I think honestly it's not a very fair gauge. Like you need to count the part where we are not earning the same pay as real lawyers. You need to take that average. So yeah, I thought very important that students should have that awareness and plan your goals, careers, and financials, everything around that. If you have decided that you will be pursuing a legal career and doing your TC, training contract, there are some things that you should take note of. For me, I would narrow it down into 4 different criteria. The first one is think about which practice area you want to do. Number 2, think about the mentorship and training in that firm. Number 3, I would think you should look at firm culture. And lastly, look at the pay or benefits that come with the firm. So for me, I rank this according to priority, right? But for different people, we all have different priorities. So you should carefully think about that and see what is more important to you. So first, let's talk about practice area. What is your preferred practice area? I think that's something we're not adequately prepared for after law school, because we don't really learn so many modules that we have a good idea of what all these practice areas entail. So honestly, if you're gonna ask me, I think it's down to luck. And I always say this, like, if you're lucky, you do an internship that's in a practice area that you like, and you find out what's your calling from like early on. If you're unlucky, it might take you years to figure out. You might have to jump from firm to firm, from different teams to different teams, to only like finally figure out what you really like after many years. And for me, I've created this chart. I'm hoping this is useful, but I've broken it down to what you should be thinking about when it comes to practice area. How can you eliminate certain practice areas to figure out what you like or don't like? And this is kind of like what worked for me. So first off, the question I would ask is, do you like adversarial work? I would say adversarial work to me would be something that's more litigation-like. So a lot of fighting, a lot of, yes, I want to win, versus a non-adversarial, which is working with opposing counsel and coming together to find like a solution. I think it kind of boils down to your personality. If you're someone that's more argumentative, if you like the debate, mooting side of law, then I think you're more likely than not going to say that yes, you do like adversarial work, and that would fall under the litigation or arbitration side. Whereas if you say no, and that's something that's more personal for me, I genuinely do not love fighting. I would much prefer it if we like mediate and we come to like a solution where we both win. So if you say no, you don't like adversarial work, I would say you would lean more towards corporate, IP, or real estate. So now let's go to the no side, okay? If you don't like adversarial work, do you like transactional or advisory work? So let's say you fall under the non-litigation side. I would think there's generally two further specializations: transactional or advisory. Transactional would be more document heavy, I believe. You're helping to facilitate transactions between companies or between companies and banks, things like that. Versus advisory, which is, I think, something that's more similar to answering a hypo question in your law exam, which is client comes to you with a problem and asks you, okay, what's your advice? What do you think we should do? How should we structure this? How should we structure that? And then you kind of go and you give them an answer as to what you think is the best course of action. So I think these are the two main breakdowns in corporate: transactional or advisory. For transactional, the practice areas would be like M&A, capital markets, real estate. So you will see yourself doing more due diligence, just checking the background of certain companies, certain clients, doing a lot of documents like contracts, looking at M&A agreements, looking at shareholder agreements, checking whether, the names are filled in correctly, blah, 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 and all of that. That is my extent of knowledge of transactional work. I'm so sorry if it is not that accurate. If it's advisory, you might think of tax, intellectual property, employment law, things like that. And now if we look at the litigation side, do you like international work or do you like more flexible rules? If you're okay to not do so much international work and you prefer to have the ability to change the law in Singapore, then I think litigation might be more suited. From there, you might think about what kinds of litigation. Because when you do litigation in Singapore, and let's say your case goes up to the High Court, the Court of Appeal, you actually have the ability to make an impact on what the law is, right? If the court rules in your favor. So that's something that not a lot of people have the ability to do. I don't think that's something that corporate lawyers can do as well. So I think that's pretty unique to litigation. By the way, all these questions for litigation and my knowledge of litig comes from my friends around me who have been training in this area. So huge shout out to them. This is completely not based on personal experience, so take it with a pinch of salt. So the other flip side is arbitration, right? So if you like international work, as I understand, arbitration allows you to do that. So companies from all around the world can come to Singapore to arbitrate, I think. And Singapore has really established itself as a place for mediation with our mediation center, and as well as like arbitration. I think we're pretty well known as well because we're kind of like an independent country with the rule of law and all that. So people do come here, and you will have access to more international cases. Arbitration, I think you can like choose and pick which rules you would like to follow, whereas litigation, you can't do that. I think there's like the whole rule of court thing. And one thing, if you do litigation in Singapore, it's not so international because you're probably going to be dealing more with local companies or local people. There we go. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. This was like a big summary, and I need to put a huge disclaimer out there. This is my idea and my understanding of the breakdown of different practice areas, and I thought this little mind map would help a lot of people to kind of like understand or narrow down what practice area you could be keen in instead of having to go through all that internship. Yeah, at least make an educated guess, you know? So once you have determined roughly which practice area you like, you should think about which firm specializes in that practice area, which firm is really the top of the top in that area. So you could be looking at Legal 500 ranking, chambers, speaking to employees in the firm if you don't have an opportunity to intern there. These are some ways in which you can find out which firms are really good at what they do, and I assume that's where you want to be because especially in the developing stages of your career, I think we should be looking at the best grounds for training so that we can learn the most out of these reputable lawyers who have so much experience in these fields. I think that's the only way in which we can get better at what we do. The next part I want to talk about is mentorship and training. So this is really important to me because I feel like being a trainee, it is the most like important time of our career. The quality of training will make or break you, I feel. If you have good training, you have good mentorship, you will probably be able to learn so much more than in a firm whereby no one is really bothering to teach you and to guide you. So some questions you should ask: does the team provide sufficient mentorship? Okay? Are they invested in your growth? What is the partner to trainee ratio on each file? And are they supportive, approachable, and willing to teach you? Or are they more like passive and kind of like let you do your own thing, don't really check your work, don't really give you feedback on your work and things like that? And lastly, what is the work exposure like? So work exposure means, do you get to do a variety of different work, or are you just stuck to doing one kind of very specialized task, or a task that might not be really meaningful or helpful for your learning? One thing I wanted to elaborate on is the partner to trainee ratio on a file. I think that's quite important because in some big firms, you might be working in really big teams. You could have partners, so many senior associates, so many associates. I would like to have more one-to-one learning with a partner. Hear kind of like their train of thoughts. I'm not trying to say that working with an associate is a bad thing. I feel like there are associates out there who are super helpful and they will guide you through a task. They will tell you what you should look out for and provide really meaningful feedback. But I think it always helps, and it's always good to be in a place whereby the partners are also very supportive of you and are really invested in you, a trainee, and what you are learning. Because a lot of the times I think partners will say that they're busy, and I know that they are. They're busy, they have so many files, they don't have time, they leave it to the senior SOCs or SOCs. But it is different getting a perspective from a partner to learn from their experience. And of course, the more experienced a lawyer is, the more you learn from them. The attitude of a partner in treating their trainee will also trickle down to the associates and senior associates in that team. If you're in a team whereby the associates don't even care about what you're learning from a task, it's very rare that the partner will also care as well. So some things that I hear from some of my friends is that let's say they're working in a big firm, they might not be given the most meaningful tasks. It could be very administrative heavy. They could be given tasks that is kind of like saikang lah, saikang. That might not be the best, because even though, yes, you're pulling a lot of late nights, you're putting in the hours, what you actually learn from these tasks might not be so much. I'm not saying that trainees shouldn't do repetitive work, because I think there's meaning to that. We learn to be more meticulous, we learn to be more detail oriented, we see the process through and through. There is really so much to be learned from it, but I don't think that should constitute the whole or the bulk of what trainees are doing. I think it's so important that your partners are invested in your growth as a lawyer, and especially in the legal industry, whereby there's occasionally more supply than demand, and we're notorious for our working hours and not so great culture. I think it's really important for us to be aware and to really expect these things from our training. Something about work exposure I want to talk about is your partner willing to, for example, bring you to client meetings? Are they willing to bring you to networking events? Do they invite you for these talks? Do you have opportunities to think on your own 2 feet and to give your 2 cents, even as a trainee? Because that really prompts you to think with your own brain. That gives you the push to take control of your work and to really learn for yourself. I think these are some things that I would tell my juniors to look out for. And so yeah, I'm just putting it out here so that more people can benefit from it. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is firm culture. Very easy. It's just like, do you like where you work, right? And firm culture is not something that you can see on the website. It's something you have to go there and experience for yourself. And following your intuition is probably the best idea, because once you get to a place and work there for a bit, you will know whether you like it or not. Do people have a healthy work-life balance, or is it a toxic work environment whereby people are just like slaving away, partners don't care about the welfare of their team? How are the people in the firm? Are they nice people? Do you want to be around nice people? Are they competitive? Do you want to be around competitive people? Different firms have different culture, and usually it probably trickles down from the top, but you have to see what kind of environment you want to be in, right? Different people want to be in different places, but look for what suits you. How is the leadership like? How are the CEO? How are the managing partners? Have you spoken to them? What kind of people are they, right? What do they prioritize? Take a look at firm values as well. And firm values is something that is not just plastered on their website. It should be something that is shown from the things that they do, because actions speak louder than words. You can tell from maybe the kind of activities they organize, perhaps how employees think of the company. Especially you should speak to people who have worked in the firm for a long time, to see what does the firm value. How do they treat non-lawyers? How do they treat paralegals? All these things play a role in contributing what the firm culture is like. Yes, and I specifically say this, don't say, because you can say so many things about your firm, and you can tell me all about it on your LinkedIn, on your website, from the pictures, how glamorous they are, but as to whether your firm truly embodies those values, I think you'll have to see it for yourself. You have to be there, right, to experience it for yourself. How about the people in your team, right? Because you're going to be working in that team, you need to get along with them. Do you work well with these people? Do you vibe? Okay, there's like so many ways to say it, but you get what I mean, right? If you hate someone in your team, I think that's a huge red flag, because you're going to find it difficult to work with them. And if you find it difficult to work with them, you're probably not going to really enjoy your time in that law firm. People would think like it's a soft metric, like it's is it really even a criteria? But I think, yes, it is so important, because after training for like 6 months, I realized that what keeps you going back to the office and like pressing on and not giving up is truly the people in the firm. I have made some really, really good friends. Okay, I'll talk about this more later, but I've made some really good friends in the firm that have kept me going when times are getting rough. So I think it's so important to have that support, especially in your work environment. Okay, let's talk about pay and benefits. My phone is running out of battery. Okay, the pay varies for firms. What range are you looking at? So obviously it goes international, local, big four, medium, small to medium size, boutique firm. I don't know. It kind of goes in this order. I know international probably pay 8 to 10k for newly qualified lawyers. For local big four it's about 7.5 to 7, and then I don't know the rest. I really don't know much about the pay for local firms, but I think, if I'm not wrong, there's an Instagram page. I will link it down here, whereby all the law people are, and I think they published and I think they collated some they collated the NQ salary from different firms, which was a really good survey to help you understand pay transparency. You should think about progression. So how much, once you qualify, how much more do you earn every year? Is there a fixed sum? Is it not fixed? Is it stagnant for 2 years and then they jump? Or is it every year they increase? What's the increment like? What's the bonus? Is it on average 1 to 3 months bonus? Or is it 3 to 5 months? Or is it yearly bonus? Yeah, these are things to think about. Some firms also offer benefits, I've heard of discounts on gym memberships, class pass subsidy, cafe credits, or no benefits. Yes, no benefits. Also ask whether these benefits apply to trainees. Some firms I know have benefits for their trainees, while some firms don't. All these are hidden little $ considerations that I think most of us should think about, because it could affect whether you really want to go to this firm or you don't want. And especially if, let's say, your priority is financial security, right? Or you are aiming for the top paying firm, you kind of need to know where you're looking at, and then head in that direction, because you might be surprised. Some firms just don't pay as much as you think. If your pay expectations don't match your pay, that could also result in a lot of unhappiness. Know what you're in it for, essentially. Okay, overall, you should ask yourself, which is the most important factor for you, and what can you compromise on? I've given you these 4 factors. Go think about it. Shortlist your candidates. Think about what truly matters to you and kind of weigh them appropriately.